Hey there, it's Elysha. Thanks so much for joining me today. And I am super excited about my guest. I am here with Rebecca Vertucci from the Vertucci Group. And I have her joining me. She is a keynote speaker, a LinkedIn insider, a recruiting expert, and an entrepreneur. Rebecca has presented to some of the biggest companies and organizations in the world as a senior customer success manager at LinkedIn. She has trained recruiters and hiring personnel on how to find and hire top talent and build their employer brands. A founding member of the Women LinkedIn organization, she helped elevate the conversation around diversity and inclusion in the workplace, building programs and workshops that focus on employee development. Rebecca is also the founder of the Vertucci Group and Career Academy, which provides coaching, workshops, and online programs for job seekers, career builders, entrepreneurs, and corporate recruiters. Her company also focuses on helping organizations develop their recruiting and employer branding strategy. Rebecca is frequently called on to speak at conferences, universities, and corporations to bring her unique perspective and expertise to audiences around the globe. And you may be wondering, why is Rebecca here on my styling blog, on my styling channel? Well, the reason is that Rebecca and I actually our work aligns in one way, and that is that we both are here to help you find your confidence. We are here to give clients our confidence to present as their best self, So I do it through clothing and style, and Rebecca does it in professional development. So if you're looking to make a change in your career and pivot into something new, Rebecca helps you do this with confidence and ease. She's a pro at connecting people with their dream jobs. So that is what we're going to talk about today. Rebecca, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I would love for you to come do all of my introductions. That was so wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, I'm really excited you're here. So just to begin, tell me a little bit about yourself and how did you get into this work that you do of helping people become more confident in their careers?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as many people who end up in recruiting do, I kind of ended up in it accidentally. I don't think anyone really graduates college and goes like, "I want to be a recruiter." But I was born and raised in Florida, and I went to college at UCF, which is the University of Central Florida in Orlando. And immediately after college, I moved to New York City with my girlfriend, my college roommate, and had no job and no network. And I was sort of trying to figure it out. And I was waiting tables and bartending, and someone told me about staffing, going to like a staffing firm or recruiting firm. And I was like, I have no idea what that is or what that even means. But I started temping and taking on some contract work in the city. And through that, I got into recruiting with that agency. And I was, all of 22, 23 years old. And I found that I really, really liked recruiting, which really was about helping people get jobs, helping them with their resume, getting them in front of hiring managers. Ultimately, I was in recruiting for about 6 or 7 years. And then I transitioned into career services, which was the same type of work, but working with recent college grads, helping them get their first job out of school. And along the way, I started doing workshops in the city, helping my friends and family with their resume, helping them with their interview skills, realizing that a lot of people struggled with this, not just recent college graduates or people that were immediately looking for work, but even when people go up for promotion or when they're trying to move within their own organization, that how they do that is a little bit, it feels like elusive to people at all stages of their career. And through those workshops and kind of starting to redevelop my own personal brand, not only as somebody who was in recruiting, but that was really a workshop facilitator and public speaker and LinkedIn expert, I actually got hired by LinkedIn. I got reached out to by a recruiter there. about 8 years ago now. And they were looking for people specifically who had been in recruiting and understood recruiting, but that could also create content and do workshops and training. So that is what I've been doing with them for almost 7 years now. I've worked, like you said in the intro, with companies all over the world, helping their recruitment and hiring manager teams with exactly the same thing that I help candidates with. It's actually so similar, the challenge, which is that ultimately even companies struggle to know how to brand themselves and how to attract talent and how to do that kind of in an efficient, streamlined way. And so, with the onset of technology, some things get easier and some things get harder, and we're more connected than we've ever been, but it's harder to get connected. It's like this very weird time frame in history, I think, that we'll look back on and evaluate, because I hear it from both sides, like candidates who are looking for work but have such a hard time finding it because of job applications and all of that, but then employers are struggling too because it's the lowest unemployment it's ever been. There's a massive skills gap and it's really hard to get jobs filled. So that's my world. I talk all day, every day about both sides of those coins, working with organizations, either with their teams to develop their skills and help them move up internally and do career pathing, helping them with their hiring, or working with individuals on personal brand and networking.
I love this idea of personal branding when it comes to job searching, which is, I'm not sure everybody really thinks of themselves as a personal brand. It's something that we kind of reserve maybe towards bigger, well-known personalities who have big budgets to put into this. But can you explain to me a little bit, how do we use this idea of a personal brand when we are trying to pivot in our career?
Absolutely. So I agree with you. I think it's one of those keywords that we hear a lot, but that we don't always think applies to us, or we don't really know how to actually implement, even if we get that it applies to us. But the concept of a personal brand is that even if you work at the same company your whole career, which is more and more rare and most people don't do, the way at which you get promoted or move up or get raises really has to do with your brand. It has to do with what people think about you, your reputation, the quality of work that you deliver, the skills that you have. And so ultimately, all of us are responsible for understanding the value that we bring, the skills that we have, the skills that we might need to develop, and like who we are. And so when you hire me, Rebecca, in whatever capacity you hire me, what are you getting when you get me? And everyone has to own that story for themselves. It's not a story that someone else can tell for you. And I think what happens, especially in professional development, is that we hope and think and pray that our work gets noticed and that we move up the career ladder because we're doing great work. And unfortunately, that's only one part of the puzzle. The other part of the puzzle is our personal brand. And then the other part of the puzzle, which we can talk about today too, is our network and who we know. And so ultimately, a lot of times we feel like these things are outside of our control, that like we'll only get promoted or we'll only get hired, and that all the power is in someone else's hand. And we don't often take ownership for the power that we have and the role that we play in determining what people think about us.
It's really interesting because women, they come to me for help with their style. A lot of my clients are in their 40s, 50s, and it's because they want to feel current. They want to look current. And what I'm gathering here is that one way for people to stay current, to stay relevant in their job search, is to really focus on their personal brand, to really tap into the value, the whole package that they bring to the table.
Yeah, 100%. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any suggestions on ways that people can get started to do that for someone who's never even thought of themselves as a personal brand? How can they begin to see themselves this way?
Yeah, absolutely. And not to plug the company that I work for, but I do really think that LinkedIn is one of these platforms that can help us start to think of ourselves as a personal brand, because you have your personal profile and it's your professional profile of record. So it's not necessarily about you as a person or your personality or even your brand, but you still are telling a story just like you would on a resume, but you have a lot more space to develop that story. So I often will talk to people about their resume versus their LinkedIn profile. And we're used to resumes, although they still stress us out to have to update or pull together a resume, but we're used to this idea of titles and skills and talking about maybe some of our key wins within our career, some of the things that we want to be known for. When you have to really, especially when you're in your 40s or 50s, think about your career in the course of one page or maybe two, you have to really think that way. Like, what are the things that I most want to get across on this piece of paper? And so if you think about a LinkedIn profile in a similar way, it's kind of that next evolution, taking the resume and making it a little bit more personal and starting to develop a personal brand, because you can have your picture on there, you can talk in first person, you can have examples of your work, and you can build a network. And your personal brand is not only about how you're communicating about yourself, but it is about the people who know about you and that you're connected to. And so it brings those two worlds together. And I think a lot of people get that in concept because a lot of people have LinkedIn profiles or have used LinkedIn peripherally or like a little bit, but I think, get overwhelmed with the how to do it. And so what I would say for getting started is to really look to your goals of what you want to do in your career, whether that's a promotion or a total pivot. Who are the people that you admire, the people that have a great brand that that either personally or in the industry, and really start to look at how they're presenting themselves. What are some of the skills that they are promoting? What are some of the companies that they've worked for? And that's what's really great about a platform like LinkedIn, although it doesn't have to just be LinkedIn, is that you can also kind of be inspired by people who are at a phase in their career that you're trying to aim towards, and see, what it is that they're including on either their LinkedIn profile, or maybe they have a website, or maybe they have something else that can kind of help inspire you.
So it really is, to stay current, to stay relevant in your job search. LinkedIn really is an important piece to that puzzle, because people are all going there. It's a world we're filled with social media. So whether it's Facebook, Instagram, and there's LinkedIn, which is a huge piece of that pie. So being current on your LinkedIn, which includes updating your profile. And I love what you said about making it more personal, or making it more like a person. So it's not just the piece of paper on the resume, but it's got the picture. Do you have any more tips about that? Like, how do we use first person? Is that the way to go? Or what do you suggest?
Yeah, so I definitely have lots of tips about LinkedIn profiles, and not to plug, because I just know that we don't have a ton of time. I have written a few articles about this, both on LinkedIn and on my website, because I know this is kind of some of those most commonly asked questions. But when it comes to the photo itself, it is really important that it looks like you today. So, I know, especially like your ideal client, I'm sure you talk about this a lot with your clients, the confidence of like what we look like today. We have to, it's like, you have to think of your LinkedIn profile, or really anything in your personal brand, if you have a website or if there's anything that you're doing on social media, as being authentic to, if I met you in person today, you would look exactly the same way. So what you look like on your best day at work, if you have a big presentation, or you're maybe you're going to speak on stage, or you have an interview, like what is that best version of you? And obviously you would help style that person and make them feel really confident in what they were wearing. And you don't, but that, to what I want to say is that what really matters is that you look like you look today, so that if I met you for coffee and saw your LinkedIn profile, I would know that it was you. And then that the photo is of kind of like a headshot, kind of like, your head, and they can see your face, and that you're smiling and kind of making eye contact with the camera, because you have to kind of think of it like I'm shaking the hand of somebody that I'm meeting right now. And what do you do when you shake somebody's hand? You smile and you look them in the eye, and you have positive energy. And I think that's really important to think about. And I'll just say one more thing, which is that it should just be you. It shouldn't be you or your pets or your children or your spouse or your friends. Like, just make it, it's not social media in the same context of, say, Facebook or Instagram, where photos like that are really sought after. This is really your personal brand. It's about you. And so people need to feel like, again, if they met you for coffee, they'd be getting the same exact version of you that they're getting on your profile.
Yes, because we definitely don't want, in that dating scenario where somebody's picture is from 20 years ago and then you show up and it's like, who is this person? And it also
Totally.
means no more, maybe your best photo is like of you with your husband. You can't just cut your husband out and use
Yeah.
that photo. It's worth it.
And you see a lot of that on LinkedIn, and it's a no-no. Or my favorite is when people are wearing their wedding outfits, like their wedding dress or their tuxedo. And I'm like, are you showing up to work in your wedding dress? I don't feel like we are. And I actually struggle, and I'm sure a lot of women who are watching this can relate. I change my hair a lot. So I like to play around throughout the year with different colors and different links. I just get really bored within a few months, and my hair, you can look back at all of my stuff, throughout my YouTube show and different Facebook, and it's different colors and it's different links, or sometimes it's curly. And I will have people, when I meet them for coffee, go, oh, I thought you were blonde, or, oh, I thought you had long hair. So even just something like that to me, it is current. This is how I look. But like last week I changed my hair. People pick up on that stuff and they think that you're not putting forward like who you really are. It's interesting.
Yeah, and that is not what you want to put forward when you're going
No.
for a job. You want to have the picture of the job that you want. You want to be that person who already has that job that you're searching for. So what do you think is a key component? I know you really help people build confidence in their careers, pivots, their job searches. What do you think is a key component to feeling confident when you're navigating this terrain, especially if maybe you haven't been in that terrain very recently because you've been at a position that you've been doing well with? So what do you suggest to feel more confident?
Yeah. And I will say, just for your audience, don't feel alone in that. All of us are working for usually 3 to 5+ years in a position. And then even if we're going up for something internally, probably our resume is not up to date. We probably haven't done anything with our LinkedIn profile. And so all of a sudden it's a scramble whenever we need it. So one of the tips I do say to stay confident is to keep it going even while you're in your current career. Like, don't think of your resume or your profile as a one and done deal. It's a living, breathing document, or, profile, where as you are developing new skills or taking on new projects, keep track of that stuff so that when the time does come and somebody taps you on the shoulder for something, it's not a panic, right? So kind of that consistency of keeping track and not feeling like it's only something you should be doing every few years. That's one thing. But from a confidence perspective, I would say really understanding your value in the marketplace. I think the number one thing that helps people be confident in any career transition, whatever that looks like, is understanding the value that they're bringing and like why a company or a client would really benefit from hiring them. So you and I, being entrepreneurs, we get this. Like, if someone's going to hire us to work with them, we need to understand the value that we're bringing to them and the problem that we're solving. And honestly, every individual needs to think in exactly that same way. So in the industry that you're looking to work in, what are the top in demand skills? What are employers looking for? And it's really easy to know these things. It's easier today than it's ever been. There's always reports being sent out. There's always articles, and you can look at things like top in demand skills in fashion, top in demand skills in engineering, or whatever it might be that you do, and honestly understand where the skill gaps are, where your value is kind of in that, and then how to position that to an employer or someone that's looking to hire you. Even if you're a freelancer or entrepreneur, it's honestly the same process, because freelancers and entrepreneurs are looking for multiple people to hire them all the time, whereas as job seekers are looking for one person to hire them. But how you position yourself is really very similar. You're trying to solve problems. You have to be of value. You're trying to help an organization grow. You're trying to help them either like in their sales or their marketing or whatever is important to them. That's why they're going to hire you. And so ultimately understanding what you bring to the table and like what your top skills are that are most marketable is going to help you be most confident. And telling that story and talking about yourself in that way is where I see people really developing the most confidence.
Oh, I love it. Knowing your value, understanding your worth, and being able to articulate that clearly to other people. This is huge. So, whatever it takes to help people tap into that and to know that better. I love your suggestion about looking and finding what are the top skills of the position that I'm looking for and how do mine correspond to that. So really connecting to your value. I definitely see how that's going to give anybody more confidence.
Yeah, and I
So
would add one more thing real quick is just that a lot of times we go through the day doing work that comes really easily or naturally to us that we don't think is a big deal because it's in our zone of I call it zone of genius from a book that I read, but like it's in our zone of comfort, right? Like it's something that we do really well. And therefore we don't give ourselves credit for understanding that that's a value. And so I really do, when I work with people, try to get them to think about those things that come more easily to them that they're naturally better at than other people. And it could be something like, for me, I'm a natural public speaker. I grew up doing it my whole life, and I can get on an interview or get on a camera and I'm really natural. I can get on a stage. That is actually the number one fear of most people, is having to speak in front of an audience. So like something that comes so natural to me that I don't really even prepare for or think about, that I can just do because I've been doing it for over 20 years, is something that like is hard sometimes to realize how valuable that is. So maybe you're really good at, you're the go-to person at your office that somebody's like, oh, I'm really struggling with this Excel document. Can you really help me with that? Well, if in the world of data and insights, most people don't know advanced Excel as an example, but if you're the person that they're all going to, or to put together this PowerPoint, or to present to a client, or whatever that is comes much more easily to you than it does other people, that is where you start at identifying your personal brand.
that's the big hint. That's the big hint of where your talents lie. So start paying attention to what you're doing throughout your day and notice, is this something that comes really easy to me? And take that as a huge clue that means you are talented. This is an area where you are talented in. So I love that. I feel the same way. I've noticed for me, putting together outfits, going shopping, finding things that look good on people, really easy for me. And once I realized that it wasn't like that for other people, that's when I was like, oh, well, we need to do something about this. We need to help other people because it's easy for me, not so easy for them.
Yeah, and I guarantee you everybody watching has something like that in their life, that whether it's their friends, their family, their colleagues, that people are always coming to them to help with, and they enjoy doing it. So just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you like doing it, but you do it because you do enjoy it and it helps other people, like you said, and people come to you and they trust you. And I would start paying attention to those things for sure, because there's a market for everything, friends. I mean, there's more jobs available today than there have ever been. So there really is a need for everything that we all do.
So when scoping, checking out what is available out there in this job market, how do you assess if it's a good match? How do you identify the opportunities that are going to be a win-win for the candidate and for the employer? What are some of your suggestions on picking the right fit for a job?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And obviously it varies from person to person. But one thing that I think is most important that I do think goes really overlooked, and again, something you should be building all the time, even when you're not looking for work, is your network. So in my opinion, everything comes down to how you present yourself and who you know. That's at the end of the day, those are the two things. So who you know is not only people you know in your industry, your colleagues, your managers, all those professionals, but it's also people that you went to school with. It's people in your community. It's, where your kids go to school, those parents, it's all these people. And those people know, like, and trust you. And they are hyper connected, to all kinds of opportunities. So whenever I work with somebody, especially, I specifically work with people in career transition. So the people that I've historically worked with in my programs are people that are trying to get a job doing something that they've never done before. They're taking that 10, 15, 20 years experience of great skills and they're trying to apply it to a different field or industry. And so ultimately, you're not going to be able to just, when you're in that type of transition, just apply to a job and get a call. Like, that just isn't going to happen because your resume isn't reflective of exactly what they're looking for. So it'll come down to who you know. I mean, we all know people in our lives that have made career pivots, that are doing something totally different now than they did 5 years ago, that got a promotion that you thought, like, how did they get that promotion? Or started working in a company, you're like, how did they do that? We can all probably, as we're listening to this, think of 1 to 5 people that were like, wait, how did they even get in that? And I promise you, if you talk to them and start asking questions, they're going to tell you it came down to who they knew and that somebody gave them an opportunity. And so ultimately, why that's important of where to get started is because there's so many jobs listed. There's millions of jobs. There's millions of companies. Every company has different titles. It's confusing. So if you try to conduct your search online, you're going to get overwhelmed really quickly, and you're going to go down a rabbit hole, and you're going to apply to a bunch of jobs that you're never going to hear back from. The average, the statistic used to be that 20% of job applicants heard back from somebody at the company, 20%, which is really low. But recently, a new study came out that said only 5% of job applicants hear back from anyone at the company. And that's because the volume has increased so much. There's so many more jobs and so many more people in the marketplace that it's really saturated. So people do not hear back. And so if they take one thing away from this interview today, do not apply online. Don't even really, frankly, do your research online. It's just too overwhelming. Start to find people in your network and friends of friends who are doing things in the industry that you want to work in, that have titles that you're interested in. It could be alumni of your school. I mean, you can use LinkedIn to find people that you know who know other people, or maybe you're part of groups online, LinkedIn groups or Facebook groups. Find people who are in your industry that you want to be in, or kind of doing the type of work that you want to do, and start talking to them, or people that you know in your life who really enjoy their job. Maybe you have no idea what you want to do next, but you know people in your life who seem happy at work and enjoy what they do. Learn about it, talk to them, be in constant conversation and constantly growing your network, because that's how you're going to learn about companies, learn about opportunities, and then when you're ready to make a move, that's how you're going to get referred in and ultimately get an interview.
So you're really suggesting that it's about who you know. It's really about utilizing your network. So this is where LinkedIn really comes to play.
Yeah.
So use LinkedIn, not so much to find the jobs, but to connect to the people.
Both. Yeah. So absolutely. There's research that you can do, but I just think that's very overwhelming. Whether it's LinkedIn or any other career board, there's lots of them with jobs listings. I don't think that's where anyone should get started ever. Mm-hmm. It's just too confusing. It's really in talking to people, because even if you're a really good friend, I think about the show Friends, where nobody in the group of friends ever knew what Chandler did, never knew his title. But like, even in your circle of friends, I guarantee you there are people that like do something interesting, but that you know nothing about, because you just haven't taken the time. And if you take the time, and then you can, in that conversation, say, well, here's what I'm focused on, here's what I'm thinking about, here's the value that I know that I bring, or the skills that come really naturally to me. What are your thoughts? You know, what company should I be looking at? What people should I be talking to? Do you have anyone to refer me to? That's going to get you so much further than spending hours and hours online.
I love it. So meet people and let them know what you're doing, what you're looking for. It's very simple when it comes down to it. Meet them online or even in person. You know, you can do that too.
It's simple, but it's intimidating, and a lot of people don't do it. And it does require the confidence of knowing what to say and knowing how to put yourself out there. And I think a lot of people struggled with that for sure.
Absolutely. Do you think that has to do with people staying in a position, staying in a job for longer than they really want to? Do you think it has to do with like a lack of confidence to put themselves out there in the ever-changing job market? Like, why do you think people are holding themselves back to get into the job market, and they're staying in these positions for too long, even if they've outgrown it?
I mean, that's certainly very common. We have a lot of people that are underemployed in this country for a variety of reasons. But if I'm being honest, when I really dig into it with people that I work with or companies that I've done corporate facilitation with, it usually comes down to the same exact things that we're currently talking about, which is that most of us as individuals don't take ownership over our personal brand and our network. And so we aren't even moving up internally or at an organization. We get really comfortable, we get really complacent. But I actually think it's really fear driven. It's really hard to put yourself out there. And even to your direct manager, even if you have a great relationship. It's hard for people to say, I'm looking for a promotion, or I would like to work in a different department, or, I think we in our career, we get battered down a lot and we get a lot of rejection, and people will take one rejection as a no forever instead of a no for now. And it will paralyze them from moving forward. And it happens a lot. Like when I get to work with people and I hear the stories, and I get it because I'm a professional too. I've been in the marketplace for 20 years myself. And while I'm in a career that I love, I've obviously applied to things that I didn't get, or wanted to go for things that didn't work out, both in my business and in my career. Like it happens to all of us. And I think when it happens, we think it only happens to us, and we take it really personally. And we make this story about our lack of value, and we make it about something different than what it's like. And even when people are applying for jobs and they don't get them, maybe they come in second, or they had a couple of interviews but somebody else got hired, that rejection, people can hold on to that for a really long time and let that prevent them from moving forward, instead of taking it as like, oh, I got so close and they really liked me. Here's everything I can take from that. And what are maybe some other roles within that company, or maybe other companies like theirs, because clearly they saw value in me, but somebody else got the job. And that happens all the time.
Yeah, so what may appear to be a setback actually could be a lesson or education that you can take with you to keep moving forward.
I think we allow, and especially the professional setting, we allow a lot of other people's opinions and voices to define what we think about ourselves and our value. And it's hard not to, right? Like we spend 40, 50 hours a week in these careers. We've all had bad jobs and bad managers and bad colleagues. Like we've all had that true challenge of really, maybe not having our voice heard, or maybe experiencing discrimination in the workplace. I mean, people have really experienced real things, and I never want to downplay that. I think that the opportunity comes in moving past it and not letting it define us forever, and not letting other people's opinions determine our worth, our value, and what's possible for us.
Rebecca, you are so inspiring. I love what you're saying here. And yes, just own your value and put it out there. Put yourself out there. Don't be afraid. By not putting yourself out there and holding back, you're not giving people your gift. So that is actually a disservice to them. Sometimes you can reframe it that way. When you are too afraid to put yourself out there, then think about the people who you could be helping that aren't getting that.
Absolutely. And I'll just circle back to my own personal story for a minute, because when I was in career services and when I really started the Vertucci group and started doing coaching and workshops and speaking, it was really scary for me to create a personal brand and say anything on LinkedIn or anywhere that I was doing that, because I was from the recruiting industry and the HR industry, where like honestly, like your resume was meant to be like this very pigeonholed, like this is what I do, this is the only thing I do, we don't talk about anything else. And I just remember that I was teaching other people about personal brand and about owning kind of all the parts of their background and their experience, and really, saying like, yeah, I've done multiple things, and that's actually a value, not a disservice, right? And I was like, I have to take my own advice. And I will tell you that from the moment I updated my own LinkedIn profile to say that not only had I been in recruiting and HR and career services, but that I was also a public speaker and content creator, and I had these workshops going on, kind of really speaking to my true value and the things I really love to do. I heard from a recruiter at LinkedIn 3 weeks later. And I don't want to say that that's like the expectation, but I just think it's a perfect example of like, I was just true to who I was and the value I brought. And that particular recruiter was looking for someone just like me, somebody who could do workshops and training, but had also been a recruiter. And if I wouldn't have updated that, I never would have gotten this job, because especially I never would have even thought to apply to LinkedIn, because I didn't even know that they hired anyone other than engineers. Like I wouldn't have even thought of it as a place to work. But more importantly, the title I got hired in for, I had never heard of a day in my life. And even the title I have now as customer success manager, nobody knows what that is. So a lot of companies have titles that, don't mean a whole lot, that you wouldn't know to apply to or even understand what the role was. But because I was true to my personal brand, which is the point of what we're talking about here, someone found me that I would not have found on my own. So I just think that that's really key to the opportunity that exists in today's marketplace that did not used to exist, that I think we should really own.
Right. You don't know who's out there. You don't know what they're looking for. And you might be exactly what they're looking for, just as it happened to you, Rebecca. I mean, you are an example. Yes, it sounds like everything lined up, the stars, it was all perfect for you. And I'm so happy that it worked out that way for you. But it also just shows what's possible. Like,
Yeah,
it's possible. This is possible.
it
So
happens all the time.
yeah, it happens all the time.
Yep.
So I know you do workshops. You're so inspiring, and my viewers, they want to get in touch with you. So tell me, how can we get in touch from you, and what are you currently offering right now?
Well, I am on this website called LinkedIn.
Right,
It's a
of
joke.
course.
I always make that joke on every interview. But yeah, no, it's not even that funny. But please feel free, anyone watching, to connect with me on LinkedIn, because I love hearing from people that hear interviews on, from other podcasts and shows. And I have my own show. So please, just Rebecca Vertucci, feel free to connect with me. I do have my own YouTube show, which is on YouTube under the Vertucci Group, which is the name of my company. And I have my own website, thevertuccigroup.com. So I have dozens of episodes on the YouTube show that are about career development, business development, personal brand, a lot of the things that we've talked about today, along with some freebie trainings and PDFs and stuff that come with that. So please check those out, because that'll help you a little bit more with the tactics and diving in. And then I would say, what we're working on right now is we're going to be launching some new courses. They're not live now, but we have our old courses still up on our website, which are hosted on Udemy. So we have courses on LinkedIn for job search, personal brand, interviewing skills, salary negotiation. So all of those steps that come along, they're a few years old and we're working on updating them, but they're still very relevant, and I update them with different resources and stuff. And I think if anyone listening knows anybody, either the company you currently work or people in your network that are hiring speakers and workshop facilitators, that's always welcomed as well.
Yeah, you would be a huge asset to as a speaker, keynote. So thank you so much for sharing all of your wealth of information here with me today. I really appreciate it. It's been so fun chatting with you.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. This was so great.
Yeah. And everyone else, don't forget to like and subscribe the video, and I will be back here next week. I will see you then. Okay.
Bye.